Well, the Bush tax cuts are set to expire in January, unless Republicans, and now some top Democrats, have their way. The White House says it is in favor of extending the tax cuts for some Americans, but not for the very top earners. And senior White House advisor David Axelrod puts it this way. If they, meaning Republicans, want to block a tax cut for 98% of the American people in order to preserve a $700 billion tax cut for the wealthiest 2%, I'd say, let's have that fight. I can't believe, at the end of the day, that they would do that. Republicans already reacting, saying, oh, they would. Neil Boortz is a syndicated radio talk show host and my guest now. Neil, we've already had Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell come out and say, oh, yeah, we'll have that debate. We will have the debate over how appropriate it is to essentially raise taxes in the middle of a recession. But Axelrod's saying, you essentially are backing the rich. We are backing the middle class. That's not a position for Republicans to be in going into the midterm elections. What say you?
Well, if the American public was educated on this, if they understood the finances here, who these rich people are, there wouldn't be a debate. We have somebody going out to look for a job today, and the person he's asking to hire him is one of these evil, nasty, disgusting rich people who earns over $250,000 a year. And that person is sitting back saying, you know, I'd like to grow my business. I'd like to hire some people, but I don't know what's going to happen to my taxes. I don't know what's going to happen to financial regulations. I don't know what's going to happen to my health care expenses. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to wait. I'm going to let this thing flesh itself out. And, Megan, this isn't about tax revenue because 1920s, Kennedy, Reagan, all of these tax cuts increased tax revenue. It's not about revenue to the government. It's about playing this bash the wealth game.
It's a class warfare thing, Neil?
Have played for. Absolutely. Sure, absolutely. I mean, the Reagan tax cuts, government revenues went up by almost 99% after the tax cuts. Even as far back as the 1920s, government revenue went up 61%.
Well, how does that work, Neil? Because it does, you know, it explain how that would work, that you would collect less taxes from the rich, and yet your government revenues would go up.
Well, you're not collecting less taxes. You're collecting taxes at a lower tax rate, which means that productive activity is rewarded at a higher rate since you get to keep more of the money you earn. And the rich are like everybody else. If you reward the behavior you want from them, you'll get more of it. If you punish it, you will get less.
Here's a number.
So if you tell the producers out there.
Let me get this in, and then I'll get you the chance to respond. Here's a number I thought was interesting.
Okay.
If you earn more than $1 million and the Bush tax cuts stay in place, which is President Obama does not want to help the people who earn more than $1 million. But if you earn more than $1 million and the Bush tax cuts stay in place, it will save you just over $100,000 a year. So I think the average person sitting there thinking, I don't care if somebody earning $1 million gets an extra $100,000. But as you put it, this may be a small business owner, and $100,000 a year more in his pocket could mean 2, maybe 3 more jobs, or one very well-paying job for other Americans.
Right. Absolutely. Or it could mean maybe I'm going to go out and lease one more business location where I could hire 5 people. If the people of this country understood that the very people that Barack Obama wants to raise the taxes on are the people who we are depending on to produce these jobs we need, if the people understood this, Megan, we wouldn't have a debate here.
But, you know, Axelrod's point is that if you, look, he says we're going to help the middle class. We get that. But he says if we also extend these Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest 2%, it's basically going to cost this country $700 billion. So where are the Republicans who are so worried about the deficit when we're talking about this $700 billion that we're trying to save by taxing the so-called rich?
Well, there's a static view of the economy, not a dynamic view from Axelrod, and that is that the wealthy, the business owners, are going to work just as hard no matter what their tax rate is. That's not the case. If you increase the reward to these people, they're going to work harder. If you raise their taxes, they're going to say, well, really, a lot of them, what the heck? Why put all this effort into this if they're just going to punish me for it? I'm going to slow down, I'm going to sit on my cash, and I'm going to wait for better times down the road.
Yeah, well, there's a real question about how this is going to play out in the Congress because, as I mentioned in the introduction, there are now some top Democrats, in particular in the Senate, who have come out and said they don't think that raising taxes, even on the wealthy, in the middle of this kind of recession is a good idea. So there's a question about how many votes they've got when it comes to this issue. Neil.
Wow, smart Democrats.
Hey, where's the fancy jacket this week? There he is last week.
I have some on order for you, Megan. Keep inviting me back. They just didn't arrive in time.
You'd have a standing invitation, my friend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Neil Boortz, everybody.